Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So this morning, I read 2 chapters. So 1 Kings 3 and 4. Honestly, I have a lot of questions, and I'm going to have a lot of questions about Solomon's life because he confuses me.
Yeah. He's questionable.
Because he's like, he's called by the Lord, the wisest man to ever live,
Sure.
right? And yet, how many thousands of wives did he have? What? 700, I mean.
700.
But,
Like
and like 300 concubines, I don't know. But whatever it is, like, it just doesn't add up in my head. So I have a lot of questions. I'm excited to read, to try to figure it out, pray, and see what God has to say about that. But so I read chapters 3 and 4. So in chapter 3, that's when God asked Solomon, like, asked whatever you want me to give you, and I'll do it. And then he asked your wisdom. Okay, so that's where we're at in the Bible. So this chapter starts off with Solomon making an alliance with Pharaoh and marrying his daughter. So right off the bat, I mean, this is before he asked for wisdom. So give him the benefit of the doubt. Not really, because like he should have known.
I feel like he already had wisdom though. He already had a degree.
He already did because of what he did in the first, or in the second chapter, right? About like killing off like potential threats, and thus like ensuring the peace of the nation.
Right.
But okay, so he had a degree of wisdom, but it still wasn't.
Sorry, but I just want to read like 1 Kings 2:9, because I remember reading this. Like David literally says, "You are a man of wisdom." Right? He says that. You are a man of wisdom.
That's you will know what to do to
alive.
him.
That's before he asked
very
for
interesting.
wisdom.
Very interesting. Okay, so like he had a degree,
which he increases his humility in asking for wisdom, because he says he had wisdom. Okay. And he asked for wisdom.
Yes, that's true. So that's
he has
cool.
something. He has something. He just
and it's all from the Lord.
Yeah, still from the Lord.
Or he recognized that even whatever wisdom he had before was from the Lord, and he needed more of it. Or humility. But back to like the alliance, which so this was like a wise move in terms of the nation, maybe in terms of
that kind of
politics or whatever.
Politically wise. Though.
It was
a good move.
Yeah, unwise spiritually.
Okay. I see that.
Because we know from the law that you're not supposed to marry a foreign woman. So he should have known that this wasn't what God wanted. Yeah, he did that. And we could tell from, David's life of marrying women he wasn't supposed to. And, even having more than one wife is not how God designed it. So that already is like... It led to a lot of sin and a lot of difficulty in David's life. Yeah. Now it's going to like go forth again into his son's life. Solomon. And like, we'll see as his life plays out, the kind of sin that it led him into as well. And it's pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, what God warns is true. Don't marry foreign wives for a reason. But it is interesting that it was wise politically, perhaps. And yet, even though he did that, I think he already had a wife. I don't know the exact reference for this, but I was reading that by this point he already was married, according to when like Jeroboam, I think, or something was born. Like he already had a wife before this, so this wasn't like his first. Like this is already a mistake.
And he's like, all right, I guess I'll take the wife.
Yeah.
Here.
So he already had multiple wives. Yet, as we can see in verse 3, like Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking in accordance with his instructions. It's just so interesting to me because it wasn't like he was blameless. He was going against the law and going against what God wanted in certain ways, and yet it tells of him as a man who loves the Lord and is walking according to his instructions. It says, except that he offered burnt incense and sacrifices in the high places, which we know that was sinful. But my question, even for that, is how it's making it sound like that was the worst thing that Solomon was doing, was like sacrificing at high places. Yet there was no temple yet. Like it wasn't built yet. So was it a sin at this point?
So
or not, you think? Like it was after.
Yeah, it was after. But right now,
is it?
The high places. It depends what they were doing at the high places. Because there was like the thought that like if you go to the highest mountain, you're closer to God. And I don't know. I feel like some suspicious stuff was going on there.
Okay.
But here, I guess God is literally saying that was not good for him to do. But I had the same question because the temple is being built right now, right? Mm-hmm. And he's sacrificing at Gibeon, which is a high place, right? As far as I'm not sure if Gibeon. Yeah, it says it's the most important high place, so it's like I don't know, like what, but I always thought that was interesting because it says he's not supposed to sacrifice at the high places, yet he goes to Gibeon, sacrifices at the high places, but God's like rewards that act when he
because while he's there, that's when God says like ask whatever you want.
Maybe in his heart he really was like trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I guess we can't know because God only discerns the heart, but it's interesting. Yeah. This is why Solomon confuses me so much. Yeah. But it's very interesting. I guess I'll... You have anything else with that? Or?
Well, I was, when I was thinking about God asks Solomon what he wants. Like, ask for whatever you wish, I'll give it to you, when he's in a dream. And I just thought that was interesting because, like, your dreams reveal like truly what your desires are. It's like you can't lie to God in a dream. Really, It's like when you're in a dream, you're asking something with a genuine heart. It reveals really what your heart is at, and he asks for help. So he has like true humility in this. Like he's asking from a right motive because he's like, how can I govern this great people of yours? So that always struck me because I was like, yeah, he did have a right heart.
Yeah.
He had wisdom, he had humility to even ask for this.
Like others focused.
Yeah. It's just interesting how that compares with the fact that he did those like politically wise things that were bad for him spiritually. I just like, I don't know.
Yeah, so
interesting.
I have a lot of thoughts about that too as we go into like, so God tells him, ask for whatever you want me to give you, and what a striking question for God to ask. And
like anything you want.
It is similar to what he tells us in the New Testament, what Jesus says to us. I marked some verse, John 15:7. It says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. Things like that. So there is like a conditional, like, if you remain in me, then whatever you ask, I'll give you. Or like different verses of like, if whatever you ask in my will, according to my will, it will be given. So it is reflecting like, it matters what's in your heart. It matters your motive. It matters like, are you seeking God first or you just want things from him? Like that matters. But from there, if you really do want what God wants and you're submitted and surrendered to his will, then we will desire the right things and God will honor and bless that.
Wow.
So God promises similar things to us. So that's really cool. But then continuing on, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. Okay, so, and you're continuing to show kindness to him by having Solomon on the throne. So, it's like God is blessing Solomon, because he's blessing David, or because of his blessing for David. Like he wanted to bless David, and that's coming forth through Solomon now. Like maybe David didn't get as blessed, like he suffered a lot, but like part of his blessing now is through Solomon. But I think the most interesting part is Solomon's response. He actually tells God, like, I'm only a little child and I do not know how to carry my duties. And that was my favorite verse in this section, because like that's how we could feel a lot of the time, or how maybe even how we should feel if we're given like a big task, or for me, like starting a new job and something that seems a little bit daunting or something that you don't feel you can handle. But in Solomon saying this, he's not lacking in faith. Like, he's not saying, like, I give up, I can't do it. No. He's just telling God, like, it appears like I can't do it, so therefore I ask you for help. So I like that because it was comforting to me to read it, because that's how I feel like starting a new job or whatever it is, wherever God has you, like in something like you're serving. Or I just imagine, like, okay, this is a job position open, and it seems like the responsibilities are things that I don't have the skills or the knowledge to do. But instead of being like, oh, then I'll just forfeit this job because I just can't do it. Yeah. You just have faith, like, okay, God gave me this opportunity, so that means he must have the abilities to give me to be able to do this. And I'm not saying, like, to be dumb and, like, okay, you literally have zero awareness of this area and you shouldn't do it. Like, maybe there are cases where it's, but if God is giving this to you, yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to say, like, I'm small, like, I don't know how to do this. Yeah. But you're telling it to God because you're asking him for the help. So he asked God, give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is just how interesting it is. It goes over and over of how he was the wisest man to ever live, and his nation was full of peace, and everyone went to him for help, and yet how we're going to see how it plays out in his life, that it doesn't appear that he's very wise. Like, how is it that God grants him, this wisdom and then also all this wealth and everything else, which eventually having that amount of wealth and that amount of wives leads him to worship other gods than God. And we'll get into that topic in future videos as I continue to read, but true. I don't know.
That's the question I've always wrestled with. Yeah. It's like he doesn't, like, Solomon isn't even asking for wealth. He's just asking, help me to do my job. Like, I just need wisdom to do this job. But God's like, no, I'm also blessing really good with the money. Yeah. And which leads him to sin. So
you can question, like, why didn't God just give him wisdom and not the rest? Because maybe then he wouldn't have fallen into, like, those kinds of sin, because having more does lead you into further certain types of sin. Like, it's hard for the rich to get him into the kingdom. Like, so but yet we know God's best. So I think like that, having this amount of questions, yet being able to trust, like, well, he was the wisest man. God knew what he was doing and was for a reason. So right now my thoughts are that, okay, he was really sufficient in his job. He was, like, God answered him with that. And like he was able to give a lot of wisdom to other people and help the nation. And so praise God for that. Yet he was lacking spiritually. So my thought just right now is that maybe his lack, he had full wisdom and he was able to discern. Maybe he chose what was wrong with the wives, discerning the wives. Like, maybe he did know what was right, because it says he knew right from wrong. So maybe he chose wrong, but God had a hand in all of that. In his mistakes, in his mess ups, God used that to, like, reveal to him what wisdom was. And then he was able to write these books like Proverbs and Song of Songs. Yeah. So
he learned from his mistakes.
Yeah, especially Ecclesiastes. Thank you. So maybe it was all for the good of the people and for us who are now get to read it and gain wisdom from him, even though he didn't fully live out the wisdom. And I think that just shows, like, even, like, if you are wise in a lot of ways and you're following the Lord, you could mess up greatly. So no one is, I don't know the word, but, like, free or from sin. Like, you still can fall into the sin no matter how wise you are. But that God can still use it to share wisdom. True. And to lead you to hard times. Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely have to learn
there's a lot of interesting things here.
Yeah. We'll continue with talking about Solomon.
Yeah. All right. We can conclude there for today.
All right. Very exciting.
Yeah, I
very
love
exciting.
This part of the Bible.
Yeah.
look into it more.
Yeah. Gain more wisdom. Never be too sure, but trust in God and depend on Him for help.
Yeah. Always ask for help.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.